Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to look at another 1v1 here on the SC Battlegrounds. And our first player here at the bottom middle, spawning on Lost Temple, is our blue Protoss hero, Mr. iamjacksguns. He's appeared on the SC Battlegrounds once in a while. And we've got another 1v1. He is actually a medium high level diamond, and he's playing against a Masters League Terran. I didn't catch exactly how many points he has, but the red Terran here, known as bioniK, like an extra emphasis on the K, or maybe it's just bioniK. I don't know. Anyways, we're going to get into this game right now, and as you can see, the Lost Temple, 4-player map, spawning Protoss versus Terran, so it should be a pretty interesting matchup here. This is one of my more favorite matchups to watch. I actually like watching PvT a lot. PvZ can be a lot of fun sometimes too, but it just kind of depends. But of course, I am not a Protoss player or a Terran player. I am a Zerg player myself, so I'm not as knowledgeable about these two races, so forgive me if I make any newbie mistakes as far as particular strategies pertaining to either one of these races. But of course, it looks like jacksguns is going to go ahead and get out a relatively early scout here, and he's going to get a lot of intel, getting in and seeing exactly what that barracks timing is, and of course keeping that probe alive away from the SCV so that he can get as much scouting intel as possible. Of course, it's very hard to kill off that, and nay, I say impossible to kill off that scouting probe until you actually can get a Marine out. And so he's got a little bit of time there to kind of run around in the base and see if he's going to try to wall off or anything against him. That barracks is just about 75% done right now. And of course, continuing with the harvester production, you can see on the income overlay there that both players are about the same. Oh, my goodness, I'm sorry, I accidentally hit the pause button. But no, it looks like on the production menu here we can see the barracks just finishing up, more SCVs being produced constantly, and a gateway is going down. The assimilator is up and running now, but jacksguns has not actually started getting any gas. I'm assuming that is a slight mistake. He is probably spending a lot of effort trying to keep this probe alive in the base, and as we can see, he did lose quite a few HP on that scouting probe. So running it away for a second, and now does have his probes harvesting gas. No refinery yet for our Terran. He is getting his orbital command up now, though, right around the correct time, it would appear. So I know that most Terran players usually try to get it right around the 15 or 16 supply mark. Oh, and we're going to see a bit of a bunker push here from bioniK. Immediately, jacksguns bringing out 2 probes, trying to take on this SCV, and it looks like he is going to force the SCV, at the very least, to stop building for a second. And there is a Marine just now coming up the ramp. It looks like he is going to try to do some harassment with this, manages to take out the SCV, so there's not going to be a SCV here to finish the bunker for the time being. Pulling off a few probes here, it looks like he's going to have a Zealot out as well. And the probes are slightly faster than the Marines, so possibly going to try to do a surround to trap that Marine before the Zealot can get in there and do the damage. Although if the probes can get the surround, they can actually take out that Marine. Oh no, and miss-microing with that one Marine a little bit. Getting a second Marine up there, but it looks like it is going to be taken down, no problem. The bunker is canceled, and it looks like the units that were rallying over to jacksgun's base are going to be sent back to the Terran's base. But meanwhile, looking back in the Terran player's base, he does have a second barracks up now, and putting down a third Barack Obama, as well as his refinery. So it looks like he is going to be going pretty heavy bio in the early to mid game. Oh, and just seeing now a lot of queued up units here. That of course is not a good thing. That means your macro was slipping, and as we can see by his resource count in the top right, he did have quite a few extra resources, although it looks like he's going to go ahead and remedy that by putting down a command center. So perhaps he was actually intending to do that all along. Getting such a late refinery does mean that you're going to have a lot of extra minerals to spend, because it is tough to spend only minerals in the early game without getting any tech labs or a factory or anything like that. It basically means you're going to be building only barracks, SCVs, supply depots, and Marines, which of course can get you a long way sometimes in the early game, but it cannot win you the game in most situations. And it looks like we're going to go ahead and see 4 gates for jacksguns. He's going to do a pretty typical Protoss opener, just the 4-gate push, try to get those gateways up and running. His warp gate technology is about finished, and we're right around the 6-minute mark, 6:30 mark, so that is right on schedule. And it looks like his Nexus is getting close to being finished as well, so it looks like he is going to have his expansion up slightly quicker than his Terran foe, bioniK, or bioniK. I don't know. I'm just going to stick with bioniK because that is easier to say than bioniK, and bioniK just sounds gay. So if that's your tag, dude, then that's a gay name. But if it's bioniK, that's not too bad. Although you did misspell it. I will say that should have a C on, I believe, instead of a K. Anyways, going back to the Protoss player's base here, looks like he did transfer some probes down to the expansion, which is, of course, good form, and getting a couple sentries out. Of course, sentries against early bio pushes are very, very important. It not only allows you to defend well with force fields if you need to block a choke, but Guardian Shield is very, very important to use against a lot of Marines because, of course, that Guardian Shield is going to reduce the Marine damage quite significantly, and it looks like he's even warping in a third sentry here, so going to continue to see that sentry production go up, and there is a lot of Terran forces here coming in right now. One Marauder at this point in time and a lot of Marines, so that is going to be a high DPS army. jacksguns, of course, sees that army coming because he has control of the Xel'Naga Watchtower, apparently decides not to move his probe away, and he's still hiding a probe over here by the natural. Apparently wants to try to spot that timing for the Expo from bioniK, but he has not seen a command center there yet, so of course he knows that he is slightly ahead on the economic game. And if we look at that tab, we can see that he actually has a 5 harvester lead right now on his Terran opponent, and currently keeping his forces on the high ground here. Wants to be able to possibly force the Terran into a bottleneck should they try to attack, but it is going to be difficult to force that bottleneck because I don't believe that you can cast any force fields on this far side, so basically they could just run around, and it looks like he is going to pull his army onto the low ground, and as we saw just a minute ago there, the Terran did scan over this natural base, so he is aware of the size of iamjacksguns base at this point in time. Oh, and it looks like he is going to put down a proxy pylon behind the natural, but here comes the infantry from bioniK, a few more Marauders and a lot of Marines joining in the fray right now, and it looks like they are going to stem, and jacksguns backing off a little bit. That very, very valuable force fields getting placed down in order to not let these units kite them anymore, although with Guardian Shield wearing off, that may have been a little bit of a mistake. It looks like he is going to do a pretty good amount of damage to this Terran force, but unfortunately he is going to lose absolutely everything in the process of defending, pulling out a few probes to try to defend against this, and there are 3 Marines and 2 Marauders left right now. These units are all relatively injured though, so if he can rally out a few more units, he might be okay. And the Terran unit's not going to back off just yet. Here come the Zealots, going to do a little bit of damage here, taking out a couple of those really injured Marines. And here comes a Stalker as well, although that Stalker was getting fired down there for just a second. And no, the Stalker's stepping out and is going to get taken down by those Marauders straight away. Those Marauders just absolutely shred Stalkers, so that is definitely not the units he wants to deal with them. As you can see, these Zealots are actually doing quite a bit of damage here, forcing those Marauders to even back up a little bit further. And oh, only 1 Marauder left. Can he take out these 2 very wounded Zealots? No, that last Marauder does fall to the side blade popsicles of the Zealots, and it looks like he is going to continue to build Zealots. Only 1 Stalker in the mix right now, and I would say that he definitely needs to start warping in a few more sentries and actually going for Zealot charges, we can see here on his Twilight Council, which is going to be very good for getting his Zealots in close proximity in a very short order. But looking back at the base of bioniK, he does have 4 barracks now and 2 tech labs on, and there is another battle going on immediately right now. There is 4 Marauders, it looks like, and another handful of Marines. A sentry coming out for iamjacksguns. That force field not going to do a whole lot. Unfortunately, you need more than 1 force field if you really want to prevent Terran units from kiting you. And it looks like there's just going to be a lot of back and forth here, continuing to warp in gateway units. These Zealots going to try to just stall for as long as they can. As we can see, the Marauder concussive shell is just now finishing up, but the Zealot charge is almost finished as well, so we'll see if he can manage to hold on for long enough to get that Zealot charge out, which may turn the battle in his favor, and it looks like he is going to lose all of his Zealots. There's 1 sentry and 1 Stalker left, but there are more and more infantry units from our Terran player bioniK rallying down to his base, and a few more Zealots coming out right now, and it looks like that is going to force bioniK to back up for just a little bit while he waits for some more reinforcements. But here come the Zealots charge, just getting ready to finish up right now. 1 Stalker, 3 Zealots. These 3 Zealots starting to get dangerously low on health. One of them gets focus fired down, and a lot of infantry from our Terran player starting to build up here. This is a very high pressure, tense situation. Another finally getting the robotics facility up, going to try to get out those Immortals, which will very much negate the power of the Marauders because those Immortals deal so much damage to the Marauders. And it looks like stim wearing off. bioniK forced to stim again to get away from those Zealots, especially now that they have charge. It is very difficult for them to kite charge Zealots because they just close the gap so quickly, and it looks like a Zealot's coming out trying to do damage, and here come the probes, going to try to get some damage on the Marauder. The probes actually are pretty good at taking down Marauders as long as he doesn't have Marines in the mix, but here comes a couple of Marines and 3 more Zealots and an Immortal are going to come out, and this may actually be able to put a stop to this Terran push after all of that pressure, losing a lot of units and even a few probes there at the end. He is going to manage to push the Terran forces back, and the charge lots are going to just clean up the remainder of this Terran force, and it looks like he is once again going to be forced to stim and try to kite as much as he can. But as soon as charges are available again, these Zealots are going to close the distance, but it's not going to matter because there is enough units rallying out from these bases right now, and it looks like a couple more barracks even going up. Tons of extra resources for our Terran player right now. It looks like he's really slipping on his macro, spending so much time microing his army. Meanwhile, back at the base of Jack's Guns, it looks like his gas is getting a little bit high, but keeping his minerals very low. And surprise, surprise, using that extra gas to get in a few more sentries here, that's going to allow him to control the engagements a lot more. With this narrow choke and these very, very high damage, high power units, he is going to be able to force a narrow engagement path, which will let these units be a lot more effective in that small area of effect. 2 Immortals out now, though, with the 4 Zealots here and all these sentries, and even warping in a lot more Zealots. I think he is going to be okay. And as we can see on the production tab here, we've got a Dark Shrine starting, which a Dark Shrine could be very, very deadly in this situation. Especially we've seen the Terrans using a lot of mules. He's using a lot of scans and getting an observer out as well. He wants to be able to spot the Terran's base and see exactly what's going on. Oh, and great force fields there, trapping a lot of Terran infantry and losing a ton of them as he tries to back up from those charge slots. And it looks like Jack's Guns is going to back off for just a little bit, although it does look like he now has a commanding lead in the armies. As we can see with these 2 Immortals, which are still at full health, and a lot of Zealots still rallying out some more Stalkers and Sentries. He has just got a formidable force, but he can't leave his Terran opponent alone for too long because he has 8 freaking barracks. Holy barracks, Batman. That is a lot of barracks, and it looks like he is just going to continue to push with this infantry force. Our Terran player showing a very one-dimensional form of play right now, although sadly this is what a lot of Terrans do and get away with because infantry ball is just so powerful right now. But it looks like Jack's Guns dealing with it relatively good so far, managing to get out that charge, using his force fields and his guardian shields very well, and getting out those couple of mortals, which are going to deal a ton of damage to the Marauders. And one thing that is important to note is that Jack's Guns did not overbuild Immortals. Sometimes that is something that a lot of Protoss players get themselves in trouble with, because if you overbuild Immortals, then all your opponent has to do is just mass Marines, and stemmed Marines can take down Immortals actually very quickly if they don't have any Zealots or Stalkers helping defend. But it looks like Jack's Guns is going to break into the natural here. All the SCVs coming out, and they are going to force this army to back up. 1 Immortal going down, but here comes some DTs getting in the mix and going to take out a bunch of Marines, and also it looks like going to take out some reinforcements as they try to come down. A bioniK is going to GG. And it looks like Jack's Guns taking down a Masters level Terran player. He, of course, as I mentioned earlier, is a mid to high level Diamond. And, you know, doing a great job here sending in the replay. If you guys want to send in some replays to me, feel free to email them in. It's achaya.scbg@gmail.com. That's achaia.scbg@gmail.com. And, you know, in the subject, just put a quick description of the game, what your gamer tag is, and what level you are as far as Diamond, Platinum, whatever, and you know, how many points you have on the ladder. And in the body of the email, just put a description of what happens in the game. You know, describe it, lay it out however you want to. The shorter the better, just so that I can get through them quickly. And of course, attach the replay and send that on in. And I would love to cast some lesser known players, introduce some new players to the SC2 community. So if you guys have some games, go ahead and send them on in, and I will take a look at them and hopefully get some new players introduced to the StarCraft 2 community at large. Thanks again for watching, guys. I am out of here.